facilitator of ABSI Connect, Alberta Social Innovation Connect. And you'll also see her video is still on at the moment, Elise Martinoski, who's my colleague. She's going to be manning the chat and making sure that you are all able to get admitted into the session. Feel free to send her a direct message if you have any technical issues or questions. So yeah, let's get started. Here's a little overview of what we're going to cover in this session. Before I go over that, just a couple of logistics. You'll notice that all of you were automatically muted and your videos are off when you joined. That's not because we don't want to hear and see you, but it's just to make sure we have good audio quality for everyone else. So we ask that you do stay muted at least during the presentation, the initial part of this session, just to make sure that everyone else is able to hear and get the most out of this. If you do have questions, though, we would love to hear them, so please add them in the chat as we go. And Elise will be kind of compiling those and making sure that I have some time to respond to them at the end. She'll also jump in if she sees that one of your questions is something that I could immediately clarify or respond to. For example, if you just want me to clarify something I said, feel free to put that in the chat. So yeah, the session is being recorded. We'll share the recording afterwards, along with answers to any questions we're not able to cover during the session. And I saw a lot of names on the registration list that I'm not familiar with, along with many that I know well. So thought we'd take just a few minutes at the beginning to give an overview of what is ABSI Connect, and also to ground us in just a few definitions so that we're on the same page in terms of how we refer to a few terms that we'll use throughout. After that, we'll go into some details about the Community Catalyst program. So the background, why we're doing this, what types of applicants can participate, and what we'll expect of you if you're in the program, along with the application instructions and a bit about the timeline. You will, of course, find all of this information online on our website. So I hope that you've already accessed it there, but if not, we'll make sure we include that link with the full Google document, which has all of the details I'll cover along with the application questions and instructions. And at the end, we'll leave lots of time for questions. So make sure that you populate them in the chat or save them for the end, and I look forward to responding to them. All right, so first of all, what is ABSI Connect? ABSI Connect, Alberta Social Innovation Connect, is not a formal organization. We're a collective or a network of people and organizations in Alberta who want to get better at addressing today's most pressing issues in our communities, and we believe that this requires more intentionally working with and learning from each other. ABSI Connect was started in 2015, initially as a fairly exploratory initiative to uncover what social innovation looks like in Alberta and what's needed to foster more innovation and creativity when it comes to how we address the really stuck, messy problems in our communities. And I'll get into what we mean by social innovation in just a minute to make sure that we're on the same page there as well. Our shared purpose is to find, connect, celebrate, and support Albertans who are creating and testing new ways of approaching society's most pressing problems. That's ambitious, and it requires a lot of people. I'll get into a few of the people involved in just a minute. Some of the ways that we're currently doing this is through events, so things like the in-person event we held this past spring, which brought together 50 or more change makers who were sharing stories and insights from their work. We do some online convenings with smaller groups who are surfacing patterns and sharing updates from their work. We have a podcast called Pause, in which different change makers from across the province who are really working to find new, different creative solutions are pausing with their colleagues, and they're reflecting on the work they're doing, the lessons that they're learning along the way. And of course, like many other networks and collaboratives, we have a newsletter, we host webinars, have blog posts, and do a lot of meetings and introductions. So essentially a bunch of efforts to try to better cross-pollinate all of the amazing events, opportunities, lessons being learned, things being done in change-making across the province. A couple upcoming things to keep an eye out include some webinars. We have one in January in which Paige Reeve will share stories and reflections from a social innovation lab in Edmonton that work to culturally adapt their process to work with a local Bhutanese community. We're also going to have a webinar in February with James Stotch and Alina Turner, who will share some insights and ask some important questions about the role of artificial intelligence in our efforts to do social good. And we, of course, have podcast episodes and blog posts coming up regularly. And we'll be doing an in-person workshop in early March in Edmonton, which participants of the Community Catalyst program will attend, but will also be open to others who are interested in learning more about social innovation and experiencing some facilitation tools that can be used in their communities. So stay tuned. Some of those details are on our website already, and others will be up soon. But the best way to stay informed is to follow us on social media, subscribe to our newsletter, and check out our website. So you can find all of those details on our homepage, which is absiconnect.ca. I thought I'd also just really quickly highlight some of the principles underpinning how ABSI Connect works. And these also underlie the design of our Community Catalyst program, and I think highlight some of the principles and ways of working that we'll be looking for in participants. So the first is that we want to think in systems. We believe that innovating and doing good change-making work requires attention to the systems we're working within and the different ways that different causes and changes we might make interact with each other. We also believe that change-making work happens because of people and their personal growth, ideas, relationships, and when possible, we want to put aside our hats and egos and connect as humans and really get real about what we're struggling with, what we're learning, and what we're doing. We want to foster diversity. Innovation is more likely to happen if we have diverse voices, ideas, and perspectives at the table. And we want to learn in community. So we know that learning is more rich when we can share it with others and hear their perspectives and insights and bounce ideas off of and expand on what each other are doing. And we know that there are incredible things happening in communities across our province. I think one of the things I find most inspiring about this job is interacting with and learning from change makers all over. So we really want to build on and amplify what's already happening and is being done well in the communities across the province. All right, so that all sounds well and good, but then I always get asked, well, who's involved in this? It could be a very long answer, so I'll try to keep this fairly short, and we'll point you to our website to see more details about some of the wonderful people we get to work with. The staff team includes myself and Elise, who you will have seen when you first logged on to the webinar. And she's the one who's managing the chat and taking care of your questions throughout this event. So yeah, we're taking care of the day-to-day online administrative and communications work to make happen the things I just described. We also are supported by a really wonderful advisory team who help with the development of our priorities, our structure, strategies, and just act as champions and supporters for ABSI Connect and social innovation. And we also work with a network weaver group. So this is around 15 people, it ebbs and flows, who are themselves network builders and communicators and collaborators, and also experts in systems change or social innovation. So they're working in different sectors, communities, or issue spaces where people may or may not resonate with some of the jargon that's sometimes used when we talk about social innovation, but where there are change makers who are doing incredibly creative, innovative, and collaborative work. And they're helping to share those stories, to share our opportunities with others. I know many of you may have heard about this opportunity through one of them. And we have participants in both our Network Weaver and our advisory group who are from government, academia, the nonprofit space, and elsewhere. You can find them listed on our website and also reach out if one of these roles is something that might interest you. In addition to those individuals, we're really grateful to the Suncor Energy Foundation for core funding that makes ABSI Connect run. They've been an excellent partner to us throughout the exploration and development of ABSI Connect. And we're also one of 6 regional partners in Social Innovation Canada, which is a new national network aiming to do essentially the same things we are, but at a national level, building a more connected social innovation community across the country, with stories being shared, opportunities for collaboration and learning being surfaced. And we're very grateful to them for funding flow through as well, which currently comes from the federal government and the McConnell Foundation. Mount Royal University's Institute for Community Prosperity currently acts as ABSI Connect's administrative backbone and helps to make logistics and finances work smoothly. They also have been wonderful at connecting us to their incredible network of changemakers and are just a really great group that I'd recommend reaching out to and getting in touch with. And then, yeah, many local organizations and individuals support ABSI Connect in different ways. So for this program, we'll be leaning on individuals in the network to help with applicant screening, to act as buddies and peer support for participants who come into the program, and also to help facilitate events and other things throughout. And if any of these are roles you might be interested in playing, we'd love to hear from you and see how you could get involved and support the program. So super briefly then, having given that overview of ABSI Connect, but before going into the program, I thought I'd just take a quick minute to highlight what we mean by a few terms that I've already tossed around. We often use the term changemaker. By this, we're just referring to anyone who's working towards improved outcomes for people and the planet. And we really do believe that many people we see and interact with are changemakers and are doing really important work. Now, some changemakers are social innovators. And both of these are terms that other people might define differently, and that's completely fine. By social innovation, we're referring to initiatives or processes that change or have the potential to change system dynamics that contribute to a messy or stuck problem. So on this slide, I've shown a diagram which we actually took from Cheryl Rose of some different types or levels of change making. And all of these are really important. So I'll share one classic example, which you may have heard before, which would be in the food system. We need change makers who have intention, who are aware of food insecurity issues in their community, and they want to make a difference. They want to do something. We need involvement. We need change makers, secondly, who step up and they donate to their local food bank, and they volunteer, they help meet immediate needs caused by the lack of food security. We need those change makers to be involved and to be building and supporting programs that really respond to those needs. Third, we need invention. We need more efficient ways of stretching those resources, meeting more people's needs, making sure that food is reaching everybody who needs it, and that we're trying to address those symptoms as efficiently as possible of that problem. And then finally, we need innovation. So we need efforts to understand, well, what are the different causes that are contributing to this food insecurity issue we're seeing? And what are some ways we can experiment with addressing those root causes or scale up things that have worked really well elsewhere to try to prevent food insecurity from occurring in the first place? So that's just one example in one sector. And as you can see, all of those types of change making are really critically important. We need food banks, we need all the other services that treat the symptoms of problems and help people get back on their feet. ABSI Connect's focus, and the focus of our Community Catalyst program, though, is on that innovation category. So those people who are working in or really want to work in the innovation space, they're interested in understanding and addressing the root causes of entrenched problems in their community, whether that's racism, poverty, food insecurity, environmental degradation, you name it. So yeah, we're talking about problems that are complex, that people might define differently. People might have different understandings of the root causes, and it needs some innovation to try to better understand and to better address that issue. So feel free to peruse some of the stories on our website to see other examples of social innovation in Alberta and get a better sense of kind of what we mean by this. All right. So now the Community Catalyst program. This program came about as we were looking at ABSI Connect's purpose and principles, the details I just shared with you, and kind of comparing what those are, what we desire to be, alongside the list of gaps and needs that we've collected as we've chatted with changemakers across the province about what is needed and what is working well when it comes to doing social innovation in their communities. So we heard about a lot of things that are working really well, but also some recurring challenges. Among them, silos, redundancy, inefficiencies, us not being aware of great work being done and lessons being learned in other communities or other sectors, and a lack of scaling and adopting of ideas from elsewhere. We've heard about funding models that don't really incentivize that system understanding or taking the time to generate new creative ideas. And we've heard about a lack of diversity among people who show up in social innovation conversations. So we want to really expand that conversation and bring in new and different perspectives. So the Community Catalyst program is intended to bring together a small cohort of change makers. So we'll have people from 4 to 6 initiatives or communities across the province, could be 1 to 3 people in each community or initiative, that want to find and test new solutions to a stuck problem facing their community. This is a blend of a micro grant and a cohort program, you could say, and it's a pilot program. So we're designing it as we go, and it may also adapt over time to be responsive to the needs, the interests, the constraints of those who end up participating. The microgrant is optional. You can apply to participate in the program without any of the funding that you can apply to receive as part of being in the program, but the peer learning or the cohort component is not. So we do really want to attract people who are interested in that aspect of building a network, a community, sharing stories, learning in community, and creating a more diverse and responsive network within which they can learn and be supported and support others. So I've already touched on this, but some of the goals of the program, the reason that we're doing this, are to help more change makers access some of those things they need to catalyze social innovation, to catalyze new or different ways of approaching the stuck problems they're facing in their community. So it comes with that little bit of funding, access to facilitation resources, and amazing people in our network who can provide support. We want to build relationships. We want to start to break down some of those silos that I mentioned that keep coming up as people talk about what holds back creativity and innovation in change making. And we want to find and surface and celebrate more stories and provide support to more change makers. And create opportunities for those who are already quite established within this community and this network and have a ton of expertise to offer, to also be able to do that to others who are looking for support and are interested in trying something new in their community. All right, so that's why we're doing it. What's in it for you if you participate in the program? Well, first off, it's that supportive peer network and the chance to learn alongside others who are interested in perhaps different stuck issues, but using similar methods or similar approaches to personal growth. Access to capacity building opportunities. So the program will be kicked off with a workshop, and we'll have a number of other in-person learning opportunities throughout. And you'll also have the option of tapping into different buddies or facilitators who are in our social innovation community and can provide support to you. As I mentioned, it is partly a kind of micro-grant program, so you have access to up to $12,000 in funding for activities you want to carry out in your community. We'll get into the types of activities that can be in a second. And we've heard that one of the limitations in the social innovation space is sometimes people having the funding and the time themselves to do this work and this learning. So up to $8,000 of the funding can be used for stipends to compensate you or your small team for time you're spending in the program. And that's optional. You can choose not to use that as a stipend if you prefer. As I mentioned, you'll have access to facilitation resources and different ideas and tools from people in our network, opportunities to reflect, learn, and grow, and opportunities to share your story and the story of other people in your community. So part of what we hope to gain from this is more stories, insights, lessons learned from Alberta that we can share with ABSI Connect and Social Innovation Canada's networks. All right, so all of this is in the program information, but I'll quickly highlight a few of the criteria in terms of who can apply and participate in the program. So first off, we do expect you to live in Alberta. You can be anywhere in Alberta, but we'll give preference to applicants from rural, Indigenous, and minority communities, or people who otherwise will help us get a more diverse cohort in terms of some of the perspectives and voices that are showing up. We would like you to be well connected within your community, someone that actually can convene and do the type of work that we're describing. And we'd like you to have the support of a local community group or organization. This could be an organization you formally work or volunteer with. It could be a passionate community group. It could be any kind of respected or group within the community. We essentially want to know that you are not working in isolation and that a respected group in your community has your back and wants you to succeed in your work. We'd like you to be asset focused, so building on the good work that's already happening in your community, but also innovation focused, not just business as usual, but wanting to shift how people think about, talk about, and address a stuck problem. We're looking for something that is different, that can help you address an issue that's stuck in your community. Now, we can, as is mentioned in the program documentation, you can apply as individuals or as a small team of up to 3 people. We know that sometimes it's easier to do one or the other of these, and we leave that choice up to you. You can apply to have the funding go directly to one of the individuals or to an organization. We will basically need a bank account where the funding installments can go. And if it's an organization, we will need to know that they're supportive of your participation and the intended use of the funding. You can also use up to $8,000 of the funding for 1 or more stipends, as I already mentioned. Now, there are a few things that I also wanted to flag in terms of what you might be. So those are the requirements, but we also realize that people are in different places in their change-making journeys and in the work they're doing in their communities. So as I mentioned, we do expect you to be doing something that is innovation-focused, that is new, that is different, and that looks at root causes. But you might have something really specific that you want to test in your community. Or you might want to be using some of the tools or processes of social innovation, such as system mapping or human-centered design, to better understand a problem or to start generating new solutions you could test. So we expect that you're coming with at least an initial idea of where you'd like to start and the types of activities you might use in your community. And we can work with you as well to help you refine your goals and your action plan. So being a participant in this program, as I mentioned, we'd like you to be active members of a learning cohort. And we're going to have a couple of different types of program commitments or roles that you are expected to participate in. So first we have what I'm calling the core program commitments. And that's really things that we expect of everyone who's in the cohort. And then we also have, which I'll get to in a moment, individual commitments. So that is, what is it that you personally or as a small team are hoping to do in your community? In terms of the core commitments, we're looking at somewhere in the range of 10 to 15 hours a month. This may be slightly more or less certain months and can be adapted based on the availability of those in the cohort. It involves attending 3 in-person events. So we're going to have our launch event in March 2nd and 3rd in Edmonton, in which you will get to know others in the cohort and in this network and learn from some social innovation and systems change experts, as well as sharing what you know and have learned already, and developing a shared language and an understanding of what the program will be like. Then we're going to have 2 more in-person gatherings. One will be partway through the program in May or June, and the other will be at the end in October. These will be scheduled based on when the cohort is available and will also be designed to address the questions, concerns, needs that have been raised so far as you start in your work in the program. As well, we expect you to engage in some online calls with others in the cohort and with ABSI Connect. And if desired, you can participate in an online group where we'll connect you with the others in the cohort, and between calls you can share what you're working on, challenges, questions, and so forth. And if you'd like, we have a roster of buddies. These are people who are active practitioners in the social innovation space and have expertise in a wide range of topics and have volunteered to be available to program participants as thought partners, as buddies, who can be drawn on in phone calls throughout the program. We also expect you to do a little bit of data and story sharing with us. Nothing onerous, but enough to help us get a sense of what's happening and what you're learning and be able to share that with our network. So we're looking for at least 3 stories in whatever media makes the most sense for you throughout the program, as well as you sharing some information about the change-making work in your region with us to help us share that out with our networks, and completing a monthly online journal entry. This can be done either verbally or in an audio format, and is basically a way to share what you're doing, what you're learning and accomplishing. Nothing onerous, but enough for us to keep track of where you're at. And completing that is going to be required to have the future installments of the funding through the program, which will be broken into 2 or 3 chunks. In addition to those core requirements, which we expect of everyone, every participant is going to have their own individual commitments based on whatever it is that you want to do in your community. So you'll create and implement an action plan, which might shift over time, but will essentially help you and your community address the root causes of the issues you're focused on in your community, or help you come to better understand them or deepen your skills and your knowledge when it comes to some of these topics. So as I mentioned, activities shouldn't just be continuing an existing program that maybe has run out of funding, but must in some way catalyze a new understanding, new efforts, new ideas. We've indicated a potential 10-hour per month commitment. This might look like more in certain months as you're working to organize and host a community event or workshop, and less in other months. That's completely up to you. We won't hold you to specific hours, but we do want to see that you're spending time and effort to catalyze something new in your community. So I've included a list of some of the types of activities this might include, which you'll also see in the documentation online. Could be anything from capacity building activities to help other change makers learn some of the tools and methodologies needed for systems change work. It might be convening a bunch of people to explore an issue in more depth and understand the system contributing to it, come up with new ideas. It might look like experimenting with new or different ways of engaging those with living or lived experience in the problem you're addressing. Relationship building, creating new partnerships, designing a new program or service, or working together in a different way with another community group, are potentially bringing new principles or new approaches into what it is you're already doing. And if you have questions about whether a particular initiative is eligible, that's something you can reach out to individually, and we'd be happy to chat with you on a case-by-case basis. All right, so that's kind of the basics of the program. In terms of the timeline and application instructions, we request that you submit your application if you're interested by January 24. The email address and specific instructions can be found in the document online. And we'll ask you to include your responses to the application questions we've provided, which are not particularly onerous, but help us get a sense of who you are, what it is you hope to accomplish, and a really high-level budget outlining how you would spend the microgrant. And we'd also like you to include a resume or a summary of your relevant skills and experience. If you prefer to communicate in orally rather than in writing, you can submit an audio or video recording instead of written responses, and that's just fine. We do still expect you, though, to cover all of those things that we need to see. Shortlisted applicants will be contacted in late January, and we'll ask you to participate in an interview and to provide a statement of support from the community group or organization that is supporting you and has your back in this. Participants who are selected will meet with us in February to discuss your goals for personal growth, professional development, and community change. What is it that you're hoping to do and to get out of the program? And you'll begin to create your action plan or refine it from what you might have submitted in your initial application. You'll then attend the in-person workshop in Edmonton on March 2nd and 3rd, and we'll start participating in the program. So doing those in-person and online meetings and tasks I already described, as well as just starting the work in the community that you're hoping to do. So that's the basics of ABSI Connect and a little overview of the program. I'm sure many of you have come with specific questions that you'd like me to address, and I know I took note of many of the ones that were put in your registration and have hopefully responded to some of them as in this presentation. But yeah, if you have other questions, I think Elise will share any that have come through on the chat. And then feel free to either unmute or to pop more questions in the chat as we go. Thanks.
Yeah, so we have one question that came in through the chat. Wondering about touring the project. So if they were to create a project and tour it around, would it be needing to tour all of Alberta or stay local to the community? Yeah, if there's any parameters around geographical distance, I guess I should say, of touring a project.
Sure. So I mean, without knowing more details about it, I would say whichever makes more sense for the particular goals of the program would be fine. If you have something that you'd like to discuss on a case-by-case basis, feel free to send us a note and we can respond to that. But yeah, anything that is hyper-local or has more of a regional focus could be a candidate for the program.
Awesome. That was the only question that I saw come through.
Great. I think I saw one as well.
Oh, okay.
Let's see, I may have gotten a direct chat. Someone sent, Linda, can a municipality apply for funding? Yes, so any group can apply for funding. As I mentioned, this is a pilot program, so we're working with Mount Royal University, which is our administrative backbone, to go through a few of the logistics. 98% sure that a municipality works just fine in terms of the logistics of administering the funding. And if not, we can figure out a more creative workaround. But any type of community group or individual is eligible. It doesn't matter if it's, I know I saw another question in the registrations, can it just be a passionate group of community members? Yes, and we'd like to see some evidence that you have credibility and support in your community. But yeah, can be a formal or informal organization. The type should not matter, and we will let you know if it turns out it does.
So there were a few more in the chat, Naomi. Did you want me to read them out?
Sure.
Just came in? Okay. So the next one is, what does the monthly check-ins look like?
Great, yeah. So we'll have monthly check-ins with the ABSI Connect facilitator, so with myself. This may just be a quick follow-up to the journal entry that we'll get you to do. So we'll ask you to submit a little reflection on what you're doing and what you're learning, and then we'll probably have a short call after that to chat about anything in particular that you'd like to follow up on, or any support that you'd like to receive from others in the network. And then the monthly check-ins with the cohort will be a little bit more involved. So while we may actually decide over time that you don't need the monthly check-in with the ABSI Connect facilitator, that online form is just fine, we can kind of do that on a case-by-case basis. But we do expect you to participate in the peer group. And so that will be a facilitated approximately 1 hour long call once a month, scheduled whenever works best for participants, in which we'll ask you to give some peer support to each other. So we'll have you share a little bit about what you're doing and a challenge you're facing, and we'll have kind of a facilitated process to get some support from others on the call, and may bring in different facilitators and supports for that as well.
There were another few questions as well. There's quite a few popping up now, but there were a few about specifics of the application. So like word limits, types of statement of support and all that. So I'm just going to send in the link on our ABSI Connect website that shows you all the information about the Community Catalyst program, as well as more details about the application process. So I'll just send that, and then that would have the answers to those questions. I don't know if we want to answer those specifically via video chat right now.
Thanks. Yeah, we haven't specified a word limit. We don't need, multi-page insane essays, but we do expect enough to get a sense of who you are and what you're hoping to do. We've kept it to a short list of questions that we hope won't be onerous or require a lot of work to respond to. And that can, as I hope I mentioned, be done either verbally or in writing, whatever works best for you. I see from Karen 2 questions. If the money is used as a stipend, it would be taxable income, right? And 2, the 20 to 25 hour per month time commitment is this per person, with a small group per group. Okay, so the first question, that's an excellent question. Would it be taxable income? What our hope is that we'll essentially get us a budget from you and be able to give you lump sums as an individual or a group and have you manage that based on the budget you've presented and us not be micromanaging that at all. I have no idea if it would be taxable income and what that would require. So that's something that I'll look into on our end and can get back to you. The 20 to 25 hours per month time commitment, is this per person? So if you decide to apply as a small group, you may end up sharing some of the work between you when it comes to the storytelling, the work you're doing in terms of those individual commitments, the community catalyst work. But we would want you as that small team to show up together on things like the monthly group calls. So some of that would be time that we'd expect all of you to put in, but with a small group rather than an individual, I expect there would be a lot more that can be shared and distributed between you. So you probably wouldn't be looking at that much per person. Again, these are things we can discuss on a case-by-case basis as we go through kind of the application process with you. Are there others here? I see, will priority be given to groups compared to individuals who are applying? The group can get a lot more done than an individual. No, we'll give priority based on, do you as an individual or as a group meet some of those criteria we described? Do you appear to have the right connections, approach, be in line with kind of the principles I outlined, and be able to commit the time? And if that's as an individual, with the support of an organization or a community group, or if it's a small team, both of those are great, and we won't give extra weighting to one or the other. I see, what do evaluators consider to be rural and underrepresented groups? Great question. We essentially just want to get a diverse cohort. So we don't want to see everyone, as seems to happen in some of these social innovation conversations, showing up from Edmonton and Calgary. We'd like to see, yeah, people who are coming from smaller municipalities, from really rural areas in the province, as well as people who are from different minority or other backgrounds. Mm-hmm. And as I mentioned, anyone is welcome to apply. We'll simply give some priority to ensuring that we have a diverse cohort.
There's a message here that I have as well. Can the funds be applied for by a community group but held by a university that is a partner?
I believe so, yes. And that's, again, a logistic we can get into with you on a case-by-case basis. But yeah, I don't see any reason why not. I see, can you clarify statement of support? Should we submit a letter or just a short statement? Yes, so we'll actually only, again, we're trying to keep this not too onerous. So we'll only require the statement of support if you are shortlisted. So to start off, all you need to do is submit by January 24, the responses to those application questions, a summary of your skills and experience. And then on that, you'll be indicating what community group or organization it is that's supporting you. And if you're shortlisted, we'll reach out to you with a form letter, essentially, for that group to fill out, indicating that they have your back and that, yes, they'd like you to participate in this. So we'll give you that format when the time comes.
Mm-hmm. Another one is, are there specific things that funds are not allowed to be used for? Are there anything?
So fairly wide open. So we don't want to see more than the 8,000 of it going to people's time. We'd like to see that it's somehow being used for activities and things in your community as well. We do, as I mentioned, want this to be things that address root causes, that catalyze something new, that are in some way related to social innovation. Whether or not you use that terminology, we don't care. But we don't really just want to give funding that will help extend a particular program, even if it's one that's very needed, that is simply kind of doing the status quo and responding in the same way you have before. So this is meant to catalyze and to be something that helps you do a little bit different, learn a little bit more deeply, and work together in a different way. Again, if you have specific questions, we can address those individually. How involved does the organization need to be? I see. Do I need to ensure that there's a point person who is willing to check in with me regularly or offer resources? So if you're not formally a volunteer or staff with the organization, we want to know that they are working closely with you and are connected and supportive of the work you're doing. So we would get that statement of support from them indicating why they support you in being part of this and how they will be giving that support, and then we'll be working with you individually to make sure that that is what's needed to help you be successful.
There's another one here. Would it be beneficial to have more than one community-based organization or coalition in support of your application if they both relate to the issue?
Sure. Yeah. So when we reach out to you, if you've been shortlisted and we ask for those statements of support, and there are two groups that are going to be really actively involved in the effort you're hoping to do, absolutely, we'd love to see that. Thanks. I see also, to clarify, can a group or individual participate in the program to start with to gain knowledge and then potentially apply for funds in the future? Yeah, so we ask all participants to commit to being part of the full 8-month program and to being active participants in that peer cohort and the other efforts described. If you are really wanting to learn and to be active participants but are not in need of the funding immediately, you're still welcome to apply. And yeah, this is a pilot program, so we're also hoping to do future similar versions of it, and that might be an opportunity for you to get involved down the road. I see, how many participants or groups are you accepting into the program? We'll be taking between 4 to 6 individuals or groups, depending on quality of applications, the type of group that it feels like it will lead to. We want to create a really good cohort with a good mix of experience, perspectives, and efforts that you're doing.
Mm-hmm. So I have one more here too. How many applications can one person submit? And I'm assuming that they're wondering about if you're one person but have multiple projects. I don't have clarification on that yet, but do we have an answer to the question?
I guess, yeah, maybe reach out to me if there's a case in which you might have multiple things. And yeah, we can chat about that.
Cool. I think that's all the questions that I've gotten on my end.
Oh, I see one new. What can we expect after the 8 months? Yeah, good question. So this is only an 8-month program, and one in which we know you will be not dedicating your full time and attention to. So we hope that this will help you start to catalyze something new in the efforts you're doing in your community and start to deepen your knowledge, your relationships, your connections. We've included a little bit in the document online in terms of some of what might come next. We hope that participants might get excited about ABSI Connect's community and network and be interested in contributing in different ways as buddies, as thought partners for future participants, or helping to facilitate or attend future events. We hope that you will have something that has started in your community that is exciting, that you want to continue, and have some sense of how you can continue that. We're not expecting that you will have completely changed the world in the 8 months that you're in this program, but we hope it will help you start some new ways of working, new ways of thinking and addressing an issue. And we'll also work with you, both us and others in our network, as much as possible to make sure that you have access to the types of support that you're looking for as you take that idea forward. So it might look quite different for different people, and that's a great question. Part of this being a pilot program is that we're still figuring that out as well and seeing where each of you might be at the end of that 8 months.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Give it a second here in case there are any other questions.
Mm-hmm. And if there's any that we missed, I did my best to go through in order, and I know some of us, or Naomi, you and I have both gotten some private messages, but if there's any that we missed, just flag it for us and we can jump back to it.
Yeah, and I hope this has been helpful in terms of giving you a brief orientation to who we are as ABSI Connect, where this program came from, and what we're hoping to achieve through it. It may not have addressed very specific kind of context-related questions you have, so do feel free to reach out. The email address for us is admin@absiconnect.ca, and you can find that on the website. We will try to get back to you within a couple of days if you have a specific question. And a couple of these questions that I said, great question, I'll have to look into these logistics. I'll do that, and I'll try to take note of your name, and we'll get back to you individually on those as well. So what we'll do after this is, in the next couple of days, you can expect an email from us with a recording of this session, as well as responses to any additional questions that we realize we missed or that we might have heard afterwards that we think would be beneficial for everyone to see the responses to. So stay tuned for that. Feel free to reach out if you have other questions. And thanks so much for taking your lunch hour to hang out with us on this snowy, at least in Edmonton, winter day. Elise, are there any other questions before we go?
There's just a question about sharing out the slides as well. I'm assuming we can add in a PDF into the email with the recording as well. So
will do, yeah. And for the most part, this content should be exactly the same or a shortened version of what's available already online.
Yeah, that's everything from my end of questions, I do believe.
Wonderful. Well, thanks everyone. Thanks for joining us, and we look forward to seeing some of your applications and exploring how we can work together with some of you in different ways as well through this. Please share the word, help other change makers you know of who this sounds like a good fit for, find out about this. And yeah, we're excited to see where it goes and who ends up participating.
Okay, awesome. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.